think it will be good, useful to give you some context about this session, because if you say directing and being in theatre, there is a lot of it is really wide ranging. So I would like to contextualize this session first, and then so it is I just want to share with you some tools and useful concepts and ideas that I experienced in my journey, and they are proposals and suggestions that you can choose to take away with. And then, so by no means they are not rules, of course, and it's just how, in my experience, how I do things, and I find these things work in my experience. And then also this session I'm speaking from the perspective of a director who aims to make high quality performances for an audience. So, which is slightly different from drama for education, when you want to run a class in school setting, or slightly different from aim for participatory and having a goal, or in a daycare center when you want to get people just up and going. Or it's not really, as a different angle from what you would do if you go into a place to work with people who did not choose to work with you. For example, in prison setting, then I think most of them didn't choose to go in there. And certainly this is not therapy and not psychodrama. So all of those different kinds, they definitely have their values. And then some of the tools that I would share with you in this session, they could be transferable. It could be transferable skills when you are working in those other settings. But then the focus in this session is not on that. So that is how I would like to share this hour and a bit with you. Okay, so that is the context of today. And then, so just want to get to know, like, who's in the room. I would like to, so first of all, myself, my background is, so my name is Joyce Nga Yu Li, and I'm from Hong Kong, and I'm in the UK. And so in university, when me and my friends, or like just some friends, we love theatre as an art form, but then we don't really see how we get into it, because we didn't choose to go into that drama school who has in Hong Kong, which is quite a very traditional kind of British theatre, because we used to be a British colony, and that's how we inherited that in the theatre industry. And then we see that's not our fit. And then, although we love the theatre as an art form, but we don't think, we couldn't access that is the first thing. And the second thing is we don't feel it talks to us directly. And then so we decide to start our own thing. And then so from the experience, then we perform in conventional theatre venues, like in proscenium, behind proscenium are people sitting down and watch and the lights go down, things like that. We did that. And then we also did street theatre, which is a bit like walkabout street theatre. And that is very different from the conventional type, because back then in Hong Kong, it wasn't a thing. And then so street theatre becomes dealing with the police like daily, and also need to know what the laws are, things like that. And it becomes, so that essentially it becomes quite political. And then we also did playback theatre, another type of improvisational live, where the audience member will tell story, and then the people on stage, they replay the story to them. And also theatre of the oppressed, and you may have heard of the forum theatre, that is which is really socially engaged theatre, which shows a scene which is the world we don't want it to be. And then audience, will be facilitated, the audience will point out what has gone wrong for the protagonist, and then they will suggest alternatives for the protagonist to change the scene and change the world for the better, and then apply it in real life. So that is one of the, so that you could see, I worked on so many different types, and always go between different things. I work in hybrids of forms, and so my experience not a clear cut. So a bit like a magpie. So I just pick what is needed, what is suitable. And I think it's also a double-edged sword, so that it could contribute to an imposter syndrome. Is like you know a bit more, but I can't say, oh, I got this certificate, which I'm trained in the Central Speech of Drama. And then, but at the same time, I could also see it from a lot of different angles. So, but everything is started with wanting to tell stories, with having stories to tell, and a desire to communicate and communicate effectively. And then, so I find that now that I have all like experience of all those kinds of different theaters under my belt, and then when I find about, because when I want to communicate effectively, then I choose which form, what voice to pick to talk to tell that story. It's a bit like when you talk to strangers on a phone, you have a telephone voice, and you talk to your parents, and you talk to your mates, and talk to a toddler. You use different voice and different ways of speaking. You are still yourself. You just have all those different skills, which is fine. And then, and the other thing is, they are all very specific. All these forms of theater, they all go under theater. They are all theater. And then, so there are transferable skills that you can definitely change your lens to focus on different things. So it's lovely to hear like there are so much different, like diversity of experiences in this room. And then I think each other could be resources to each other as well. And then, so then I would like you to start like a thinking exercise by yourself, just in your own space now, which is, can you think about a high quality theatre that you have seen and loved, something that you've seen and loved, and maybe something that you would like to do one day, or like something like a role model, like a piece. Try to describe it in your own words, like for yourself, as much as you can. So I'll give you about a minute or two. Maybe a little bit more time, just half a minute. Okay. Yeah, so just now I've asked everybody to think about a piece of high quality theatre that they've seen and loved, and hopefully that they could make one day as well. And so the idea when you think about it is for me, it is Far Side of the Moon by Robert Lepage. And I watched it in Hong Kong in the early millennium. And then I love that so much. And that almost like is a show that makes me realize, gosh, theater is magic. And so it's just, but then I didn't know how to do that, didn't know how to achieve that. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll work hard to be Robert Lepage's assistant, then I can be involved in it. And then, so, but then sometimes when I think, when you look at the really high quality, amazing piece of theater, you thought, how did they come up with that idea? That's just so amazing. Are they geniuses? And would they have they got a lot of money, a lot of budget to do that? But I'm not a genius. I don't have a lot of money, and I don't have the privilege, and I don't have the connections and things like that. Just like, how do I do that? But when you go look at those directors, does it mean that I have to, they look so charismatic, they look so confident. So which means that I have to get confident. I have to be, and how do I get confidence? Do I boost up my ego? Do I pretend to be having that charisma? Or maybe is it because they're very outgoing, they have some personality traits that I don't have, so that I have to force myself to be outgoing, things like that. And so these are the things that gone through in my mind, and then I feel it's just really hard, and it makes me feel sad as well. And then so I just want to, I think privilege is real, and then there are a lot of people who have privilege, and privilege can mask a lot of flaws and incompetence. And so that a lot of the directors who have that kind of privilege, and then they created a kind of myth and mist around them, that you feel like, how do I get into the mist? Can I be their assistant? And then so I'll be in that myth as well. But then actually, we can't just change our personality and pretend to be someone else. We can't just be privileged overnight. But you can get competent. There are some hard skills that you can really learn. You can separate all those different skills, and you can go work on them. And if you work on those skills are yours. You'll be competent, and then you will be having those, then you know what you learn. You can almost like list them out, write them on your CV, and then that are the skills of being a director. Those are the hard skills. And then I didn't learn this easily. It was by so I'll tell you how I know about this. It is from Katie Mitchell. So you know Katie Mitchell, she is the director that I love her. And then so with the I'm really lucky. Last year I was in National Theatre in a director's course, and then managed to spend a day with Katie Mitchell when she just shared the following with us. And then so I'm going to share this bit with you guys now, with you. And then it is demystifying. Number one is the hard skills of being directors. And when you hear about this, you will say, oh, it's so obvious, because you know about this already. It's just like, but sometimes like people just don't tell you that. People just behave in it like, or like having, as Rebecca said, like in a closed rehearsal room, you don't go in and see them how they do it. But then actually these are the skills that you can go, these are the craft and skills you can go and polish. And they are very obvious once when you know what they are. And then so working on these skills make us professionals. So the first skill that you can go polish yourself on is to work on text and story. So if you know that's text and stories that you can go work on, you go read scripts, So these actually are the works that you need to go and do, like polish up your skills as directors is one of the things, and then analyze and try to find out what is the way of storytelling. And when I say text slash story, it's not just about scripts, it's about sometimes this is the in Europe, it's very popular, this term dramaturgy, and it's getting more popular in UK as well, which is about how the relationship is built between what's on stage and with the audience, and how the audience experience all that. And it's not only on the stage, it's also about how they receive the information of your show, how they experience get to from knowing it, knowing that it's happening, to getting their foot into the theatre. And also the afterwards as well. Do you change the life afterwards? Are you calling for action? Things like that. So just need to look for examples and learn how they do it. So it is one of the things when you try to, so after that is text and story. And then another thing is lighting. So you will think that, oh, I'm a street performance artist, lighting. What kind of lighting? It's just daylight or street lights? Well, yes, exactly, that's that. Is it daylight? Is it street light? Is it so they're all portable light. What is it? A bright sunlight, or is it cloudy, overcast light? You can't control that, but then you need to be prepared for that. So it is these are different departments that you can try look at lighting. And so it starts to get obvious, isn't it? These hard skills that you already have as well. And if it starts to get obvious, what do you think are the other hard skills of a director? Any guests?
I think research skills.
Research skills. Can you say more about that?
Well, I mean, I guess I also was thinking about, if you're talking about Katie Mitchell stuff, the kind of research processes and like fine-tuning them and practicing them so you get better at them, and they take time to get, they take time to get better at. So it's stuff that you practice.
Yeah, I think that is it's like all the list of being like, if you work on the text, you need to be able to research what the background is, or like you work with a group of people, finding out where you like what's like the welfare state, what is that, the prison system, what are the barriers, things like that. And then I think this is the research skill applies to, is almost like a background to all of these specific directorial skills. And then, but that's not part of the list, although it's also very useful. See, like each other are resources to each other. So we just have hard skills as director, working on text and story, and lighting, and something else more obvious. It's very obvious, a lot of obvious things that you can see what's been presented to you on stage. What do you think they are?
We've got a couple on the group chat.
You got a couple, sorry.
We've got a couple on the group chat. So we've got set design.
Oh yes.
Sound, audio.
Working with, yes. Yes, amazing. So for all you guys, you said you have imposter syndromes, then you don't have to have the imposter, because we can see that you actually know that these are the skills of those like Katie Mitchell, Robert Lepage, Simon McBurney. These are the skills that they possess, and you could go learn as well. And then yes, design. Yeah, design is when you so sometimes it starts with you having a concept of you start with a design concept to express a story, or you look at the script and then think of a design to express it. Like for example, Katie Mitchell directed Lungs, where it's about climate change, and then the actors on stage have to be on the bike all the time to power the stage. And then so that is like a concept, a set design, to really the design, the form itself helps to tell the story. Design, yes. And then sound, audio. Ben Roverer says, yes, sound and audio. And then, so with, from Katie Mitchell's class, she has separated them into two things, which is music and sound design. Music is things that has involved melody and sometimes lyrics, or well, sound design could mean different things when you work in outdoor arts, because sound design, it could be sound effects, whether it is like a doorbell. Do you want it to be so yes, like the sound effect of things, sound design of where you want that sound come from. Maybe it is, yeah, like taking that doorbell as an example. Is it a recording, or is it a live, a Foley, or how do you want to, when you work outdoors, do you want, where do you want to rig your speakers, where that sound come from? So there are two different things. There's music and sound are two things, and then we have design, yes. And then somebody else will say movement, the use of space. Yes, the movement, it's on the list of hard skill is movement / choreography. So basically it is the use of space as well. How do you put people in relation to each other, and in relation to audiences, and to relation to the design, things like that. There is a word that people use often, which is called blocking, which is a technical word that people mean to say it to mean a particular thing, which is basically the use of space. But then I try to, in my rehearsal room, I try to not use the word blocking, because it means, first of all, I block. The word itself is more like block, like a stop, a block. So, or like a mental block or something like that. And so I try to I try to not use this word so as to disassociate where I would like people to go to. You have to go there. So this is a bit of a language that I grow to become mindful of. So the list. So we have text and story, lighting, sound, music, design, movement, choreography, working with actors, yes. So there is it's funny that when I first prepared this session, I list all the hard skills. I forgot about working with people because there's no people around with me in lockdown, but which is really important, working with actors. And then, so of course, this is one of the skills that you have to brush up as well. And then, so I know that one of the sessions from Bradford Producing Hub is precisely on this hard skill, working with actors. I think it's next, Shazia, when is that?
That's on 9th of June at 6 o'clock. So
Yes.
if anybody's interested in that, you can send me an email.
Yeah, so that is one of the specific hard skills that you can get polished up on. Just want to say that all these sessions, like, you know that people can spend 3 years in university to study directing. So that now that I'm just listing out all the different things that you could go and work on, and then people spend years working on that, and then and also that you never stop working on these skills, just keep brushing it up. So yes, working with performers. Planning a rehearsal process, yes. I think that is quite similar to working with actors, as well as the next session, like, so yeah, planning a rehearsal process involves what you're doing within the rehearsal room. Of course, yes, that's good. So that is working with your actors. And the other hard skills that you need to polish up on is working with your creative team, running a creative team. And then running your creative team is also part of how do you plan your rehearsal process. And your creative team involves, of course, those hard skills that's been listed above. They are the different departments that you have to, or like the creatives in those in your team. That is the text story, your writer, your dramaturg, and also your devising actors, if it is a devising piece, lighting designer, your sound designer, your composer, your set designer, props designer, your choreographer. That's a creative team. And then there are 2 more departments that nobody hasn't mentioned yet. So 2 more hard skills that you could go and work with on to get the working knowledge of is that one thing is more obvious is costume. So nothing too much to say on that, I guess. Like it's just, but then it also depends on the comfort as well. So a little stories to share with you, which is about working with a costume designer. And well, basically, like my last performance, Sarah, that works with nearly 100 community casts in each location, North Halifax and London, and then so they have their costumes made as well, but then the process wasn't as, it was more convoluted than we've planned, because this costume designer, she's amazing, like the design's really good, it's really produced high quality work, but then she hasn't worked with community cast or diverse people that much. And then so after we got the measurements to her, it means that in the first fitting, it shows that the fitting doesn't really fit the people, but then it's made to the measurement. Why is that? Because people's body proportions are like, people are different. We're not like models, or we're not like fit, young, attractive people who you usually see on stage, like conventionally. There are lots of different body shapes and sizes, and also people with disability, for example, Down syndrome, Williams syndrome, their body proportions sometimes are quite unique as well. And then so that even though when the costume designer got all the numbers, they are the right measurements in the right bits of your body, but then the proportions are different, so that when you do the fitting, it doesn't fit well. So that is one thing that I learned from mistake, perhaps, that when it is working with inclusive people, inclusive cast, then that is something that that might happen as well. So now that we know, now that we learn, we just need to make sure that we have also that the things that we get. So that unfortunately, that was like a preliminary phase of it, so that we managed to not save it, but then it just simply with a photo to go with like different angles, and so that you could have you gauge what type of body shape it looks like, and also it's also so the scheduling needs to be different as well, so that fitting could be, it needs more time between the fitting and first fitting and second fitting. So that is one of the thing. So yeah, somebody said stage management team. That is so that I think I would include them into the creative team, as well as sometimes I think that is a slash thing, which is your producer as well. So the producer is, I think Ben could tell you more about that when you sign up for his class, or if you watch back the recording. The producer now, that is more, the creative producer is getting more and more popular in UK as well. And then so that I would think and include them in the producing team. Yeah. So Mitchell said costume. Yeah, we just covered the costume bit. And there's one more hard skill that you can go work on, which is digital. And so it's all of it. You don't have to have that, but then it is something, why just say why not, if you are so they could open up avenues for you to do things, like there are like cameras, live cameras, or how you do well, even now that in this period, the lockdown period, how do you do interactive theatre or performances online, because we see that is theatre is unlikely to reopen as it was before social distancing is going to be lifted. So this is a good time to polish up on all these skills. So we have working with these hard skills as a director in making theatre that you can go and start work on: text and story, dramaturgy, lighting, sound, music, design, costume, movement, choreography, the digital, running a creative team, and working with performers. So 10 things. So if you look back at the amazing theatre performance that you loved, you put down in the beginning, you could, if you view them as like a really intricately woven tapestry, you could actually start to, like in your director's mind, start to unwoven bits of it with those hard skills, and you know why you can start to analyze from a director's perspective why you love it so much and what you can take away with and learn. And there is no shortcut really. So it's just to really go watch lots of it and work on it and take notes and write down what you actually like about each of them, each of the departments, each of those hard skills, and then apply it again next time when you do it. And then so now that we have these 10 categories, 10 hard skills, I would like you to think by yourself. You don't, this session, you don't have to share with each other, just by yourself. I would like you to assess yourself, give yourself marks out of 10 in each of those skills. What do you think? How much do you think you know for each session? And then you know which bit you would want to learn more or polish up on. Give yourself marks out of 10. I don't need to know. It's for your own. So I think these are the skills that I always would aim for to be an effective, a good director. And then maybe, I don't know, somebody you see would put on an amazing show on stage, but they might abuse their creative team, or like, so yeah, so I think these are all I do agree with that's what Katie has passed on to this list to us, and I can take this away with me and carry on to work on each of these sessions.
Can I just say something? I've given myself marks, feel like some have marked myself quite highly, some have marked myself quite lowly, and there are things I need to work on. And there's 3 that I think I'm not very good at them, but I'm enough versed to work with someone who's good at them. Does that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, this one I need to get more of a handle on. Actually, costume, lighting, music and sound design.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it will be, it's a bit like a computer game, basically. It's like how you build your team, so that you have that, if you don't have this skill that much, then you build your team so that they would be protecting you or like doing something else. But then the thing is, you don't need to be able to do all of this, because you would have your creative team to actually do them for you. Then you need to, being a director, you need to give the direction to them. You need to know what you want. And so that if you have a working knowledge of what their job is, what they need to do, and what you see the potential to achieve, then you can request them of doing things like that. And that could also help push their own expertise, I would think. Yeah, so because if you were, yeah, it's just because sometimes people can work as artists collective where everybody is doing their own bit. But for this, if you were the director and people looking at you for the direction, then you have to, that is your job. You have to give the direction to people. So that is, that is my take on it, I guess.
Thank you.
And before we move on, any other reflections or questions or sharing? Okay, so I think so now that whenever I watch any other performances, I would be learning from the show that I see or the book that I read. I mean, like for each of those department, you can go read books on them as well. And then for every performance I see, I'll be learning from them based on this 8 categories, at least, because there are the 8 things that I could see on stage. I wouldn't know the process of running the creative team or working with performers. That is something that I would ask for. So the other thing that you could do that is, you could ask to go to people's rehearsal rooms to go watch it. Like if you ask me, I would welcome you to come to my rehearsal room to see how that happens in action. And I know, like for example, Amy Leach in Oliver Twist, she is also very open for that as well, if I'm correct, Mitchell. And so there are, but if not, then just suck it up. If they don't want to, then just don't go. Yeah. I do feel people in general they're quite nice. Okay, so wow, it is 4, and then
I was just going to say, in terms of following up on what you've said around kind of if people want to kind of find ways to observe other people's rehearsal rooms, do get in touch with Bradford Producing Hub as well, because that's something that definitely kind of is in our remit to try and help with, kind of to support people who might be able to go and observe other people's processes. So kind of if that's something you're interested in, drop Shazzy or myself a line, and we'll definitely, from Bradford Producing Hub point of view, do all we can to help that as well.
So back from the commercial break. So I think are we all right to press on? Yeah, and then if you need to go get a glass of water, go, and then, but yeah, because we still got something to cover. So just now what we've talked about is things and skills, hard skills that you can go polish and work on yourself. And these are things that you could confidently say you know how to do as a director. And then, so I think that is the best way to combat imposter syndrome, is really to list out what you can do. You really know what you can do. And I sometimes like to, there is a quote that from Chuck Close, an American painter, that I would like to share with you. When I feel wobbles in myself, or when I think, oh, I have an amazing idea, that's amazing, but how do I come up with amazing ideas again? It's so unreliable, inspiration's unreliable. And then I would use this quote to comfort myself. It goes like this: inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work. And he carry on to explain: if you wait around for the clouds to part and a bolt of lightning to strike you in the brain, you are not going to make an awful lot of work. all the best ideas come out of the process. They come out of the work itself. So I know inspirations are quite fleeting and transient, and you can't rely on that, but you can rely on yourself to work hard on your hard skills. Okay. So let's move on. From working on your hard skills to be good director, and the next part I would like to focus on the accessibility. And if you ask me what is accessible theatre, it is the same as theatre. It is theatre. And then don't throw away what you know in theatre and think, oh, accessible theatre, which means that, oh, I'm worried about doing this and doing that. No, it's just making good theatre. And when you're making good theatre, what you need to also think about is how do you achieve for my interpretation, is achieving effective communication with people, achieve effective communication. There are some other people who said theatre is what you want to put on stage is to make it clear to the audience. That is theatre. For me, because I've been wanting to make things inclusive and accessible and high quality, I want to achieve communication with audiences, as well as within the team is communication. And then, so when we view access, I think the first thing I would like to say, I would like us to all get to the same page is what we mean by accessible. What is access? So I think a lot of you probably, it may not be news to you, but then I think these are really useful reminders or like bullet points that we always get into is foundation of what we do to be accessible, inclusive, and achieving good communication. And then on the macro level, and then now that I'm talking about the industry, the context that we are in, and some theories. So there is a few concepts to lay our foundation on. So, so there are a few pictures I would like to share with you. And Jessia, could you show the first one?
Yeah, sure.
Share screen. Okay. Sorry, the resolution is not very high on this one, but then basically you can see somebody in the middle in a wheelchair with in front of a chair saying, "Weigh in, everyone welcome." I mean, in front of a set of steps.
Yeah.
And then this is what I want to say is the medical model versus the social model of disability. And on the left-hand side, the medical model says, view this situation as her impairment is the problem. They should cure her or give her prosthetics. That is the medical model of of disability in viewing this situation. And then another model of viewing the situation is the stairs are the problem. They should build a ramp. And then, so can we come back, Jessia, please? So that is the medical model and the social model of disability. And then I would always want to remind myself it is the social model that we want to work on, so that it is the situation we want to change, is not the person. The impairment itself is not the main problem. And so there are, again, there are lots of like sociology theories that you can go look for. In terms of theatre, I think the catching point is that so when we say that the impairment is not the give them prosthetics, or if we say we want to avoid that, does it mean that somebody who, say, for example, have a speech impediment, then, or like a speech pattern that is harder to recognize, does it mean that, oh, we avoid that, we'll use feel all the way through, or like just don't give that person lines? Is that the immediate way to work on it? Then if I think like that, I would challenge myself. Is it then we're not giving this performer with a speech pattern to a time to get trained up and get a time to practice and work on delivering lines, because delivering lines is one of the skills of a performer. And this person, he might, I think it's down to the individual. When you will work on that performer, I don't think you should avoid their impairment, or like just saying that it is, or saying it is an impairment, so we have to pretend we don't see it. I wouldn't say we pretend don't see the impairment. And because, well, I'm sorry, the language of impairment is how I adopted from the comic itself. And then, but then people, I think it is, it's down to the individual whether that performer would want trained up, because you could learn to deliver or remember lines, things like that. That is one of the how you. So because these are theories and concepts, they're not rules or like maxims like in science. So that there's something that we always need to really think about and keep challenge and testify whether it's right or not. So that is the social model versus the medical model. The second concept that I'd like to share with you is, Jessia, can you show the next image, please, which is a blue sign. Okay. So I think all of you have seen this sign. And what I would like to say is that a lot of the times people use this sign to mean disability, and then which tells people, oh, disability is somebody who sit on a wheelchair, or somebody who have access needs. Oh, you doesn't look disabled, doesn't look there's any access requirement, because there is no wheelchair or no things that we could see. But then aware of invisible disability. So Shastia, can we come back, please? The invisible disability. And then I think it reflected in the industry currently, which is a lot of so invisible disability is harder for people to address. For example, the learning disability and sensory. And so a lot of the access provision are still resting on providing ramps and being like the being wide enough for wheelchair access, things like that. But then I think us as theatre makers, directors, and we start to, I think it will be useful to be in our mind to think, to remind people of it's not just what we see on that sign. Okay, and then can we look at the next one?
Can you see that one?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So they say, somebody in wheelchair said, could you please shuffle the ramp? And the people say, all these other kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shuffling them off, then I'll clear the ramp for you. Person in wheelchair said, but if you shove the ramp, we can all get in. So it says, clearing a path for people with special needs clears the path for everyone. Thank you very much. Again, like for this, for all the comics, like I didn't scrutinize the language they use very much. Like in that one, they use special needs. Not everybody used the word special needs. But then the idea is that the universal design is the headline I want to put on that. Like accessible theatre, if you communicate effectively, then you think about your audience wide enough, and people in your creative team are inclusive and diverse enough. And then if you can manage to achieve communication within your team, and if it makes sense to them, it makes sense to your audience as well. Like I think this is just a very it's not an alien concept to you, but then just having a headline for us to remind ourselves of that universal design. The other one is the next picture, please. Okay, I quite like this one. Some bicycles. was equality and equity. Equality, everybody get the same thing. Equity is people get the things that's suitable for them. It's good that visual imageries, it just really tells you what it is. I would prefer this one to describe equality and equity. I prefer this one to the next one, Shazia.
Yeah.
And then I think you might have seen the next one more. So this is also showing, first come out equality and equity. So the left is equality, everybody get the same. Equity is to the person on the right get 2, the person in the middle get 1, and the person on the left get none. And then, but they all raise above the head above the level to see the game. And then I prefer the bicycle one to this one because I know that probably we are all on the, people who are interested enough to sign up on this, I would believe that you're on the side of thinking that we should be inclusive and be equitable. But then sometimes if you talk to a room of people who are who think differently from you, this particular photo will show, it shows like people who need more. It's more expensive. You compensate for what they don't have. And then so the person on the left could be quite righteous about, well, I don't get anything. See, I get you 2 already. Like, why are you not thankful for it? I could see that is why I prefer the bicycle one to this one. Okay, so if we come back to faces of everybody, Shazia, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. So those are the some underlying concepts when we were building our shows, making our shows. So if I go back, so that is the micro concept. I think it really guides me to think about the details when how do I plan my session and how do I choose what game to play, what improvisation to include, and what language I use in my session, and what people to invite to my creative team. I think those are some of my guiding principles. And so time is going faster than I think, but I hope it has been all right to you. I still want to go to the micro level, just going back to when you are working with people in the room, the individuals, your team, and planning your rehearsal room. And then, so working with performers is one of those hard skills, like listed in 10 of those. And then so I really couldn't go into detail in how do you plan a session. And also I don't know what you're working on, so that it may not be, if it's too specific, it's not useful to you. So that I just want to some headlines again for just to share with you what I found useful. So I think before you start, it's really important to choose how you build your team of people. So it's not when you're a director, it's not about just thinking about who you cast, who your actors would be on stage. It's also about your creative team. And your producers, your stage managers. We did say that is one of the hard skills, like working with your creative team, running a creative team. And then it starts with the inclusivity and the accessibility starts with there as well, that who you invite into your team to be decision makers, not just who you asked to go on stage on. It's like your decision makers. And so for example, we had in the producing team and the facilitate creative engagement team, we had a story is that we had somebody who a colleague who's in an electric wheelchair, and then so we were doing a recce in that theatre. So he's in the team, we go to a theatre together. And then so of course we check everything with the theatre is accessible. You could go up on stage and you could go behind in the backstage and things like that. And then so have you got some numbers for taxis to go from the train station to your theatre, because he can't it will be a bit hazardous to go up in the electric wheelchair on that distance, or like the bus. Well, we could put the man on the moon 1960s, but we can't get everybody on the bus in 2020. That is true. So that we ask for taxi numbers, that, oh yeah, of course we have accessible taxis. But of course the story is, when we get to that, nobody have accessible taxis. So that we couldn't really, it was a really convoluted journey to get the team from the train station to the theatre itself. The theatre itself may be accessible, right? But then you just can't get there. And then but then we wouldn't find out that easily if we haven't got a member of our staff who is in the team who need that accessibility, who need the access. So that having, like, same as working with people with learning disabilities, if your script doesn't make sense to your actors, how do you make sure that script makes sense to your audience members who you want to create? Or like if it's something that your actors don't care enough about and feel passionate about, it is harder for you to entice your audience members with that. So that having somebody choosing your team is important. And so of course, like when you choose your team, you could work on, so we start with friends and family, or like friends of friends, or Bradford Producing Hub, or when you go to see shows, remember that list of hard skills and all that departments. When you really, I really love that, I want that person to work with, then you get a copy of the program, and then you know the name of that person. And so go scouts around and find your team. Okay. So in terms of, and also another thing before you start, apart from choosing who you are working with, is think about, what kind of access provision you want to have. So these are the it's really concrete stuff, that work that you can go through. So access provisions, like, so I have a list, I'll just say it to you, which is include BSL in your acting. So of course, BSL on the side is one thing, including BSL in the acting is, I think, a grey eye. Somebody mentioned you get trained with grey eye, so they do a lot of that. And apart from including BSL in your acting, so British Sign Language in your acting, also there is something that Grey Eye has pioneered, which is including captioning in the frame of vision of your audiences. So it don't look like you are like watching the scene, reading subtitles, seeing subtitles. It's just the captioning is within your frame of vision. Captioning and audio description. There is audio description, which is just, some of them are external layer of just performing, not just, but like layer performing the function of audio describing. Some people are starting to experiment in creating a story in the audio description as well, like similar to including BSL in acting, so that there's a story world in the audio description. So that is one thing. And access synopsis, which means it's usually a document that you prepare before audience come to see your show, which would involve introducing so I think if you search online access synopsis, or if you email Shastia that you want to see an example of that, I can give you an example that Mindgap has done before. And then, so another access provision is touch tours. Touch tours usually happens before the show, so that people with sensory sight impairment, they could navigate around this. And also if you do an outdoor promenade performance, that was as also useful practically for health and safety as well. And then accessible routes and viewing position. Some people like to use a viewing platform if it is an outdoor performance, or in how I think, unfortunately, in conventional theatre settings, they do already have their own fixed position to provide for wheelchair users, or like particular positions where audio description users could, like, it's within the range and things like that. And then another thing is called relaxed performance. It's another access provision. I think relaxed performance, again, there is a wealth of writing, literature, and experience on that. And then I think around 10 years ago, people had a list of what relaxed performance actually means, like house light is on all the time, music is down a little bit, and then the palette of light is not less vibrant, and no strobe light, and people allow in and out things. Like, there used to be a list of, say, guidelines that you could follow. Of course, those guidelines still exist, but then I think people are starting to challenge what guidelines and rules are. Instead, they were trying to say relaxed performance is just the opposite of uptight performance. And when you have, like, you just think about people, it's rather than, it's being more inclusive in the bigger picture, and more dialogical and more conversational, in a more conversational way, rather than following a list of rules, because whenever it becomes a list of rules, you can add to it forever and you forget about the arts. And so those are the options of access provisions that you have to think about if you want to make inclusive theatre before you. I think it is important to, before you start the process, it's important to think about it first, because a lot of the times it becomes afterthoughts, and then if it's an afterthought when for everybody, like, you have all produced performances, at the end of it, after you've to spend all your creative juices on producing the work, and then you still need to do the access, that becomes a burden. And also, like, yeah, you don't want it to be a burden, because it shouldn't be. And also, if you choose the team in the beginning, then, for example, if somebody's photosensitive to the light, you wouldn't just put a lot of strobe light into your shows, because you would trigger people in your team. And so I think it is, something will become a lot more easier if you start to think about it in the beginning. Okay. So at the end, like nowadays, I have to apologize first, because my time management is not very good. I still have the micro level of access theatre, like what happened, like some headlines, what you do inside a rehearsal room to go over, and we have 3 minutes. How are people keeping? All right. I would try my best to not go over too much, or try not to go over. And then I will understand that if you need to go somewhere else and do something else. But then I would be try to cover the headlines, and then you can then go and research them. Okay, so but then so when you get into the rehearsal room, be prepared is the thing. I'm sure you would be prepared, but then if you have a script already, I think something that people might sometimes forget is, of course, you will have your pen and paper, notebook and things like that, but if you have a script, remember to bring pencil and rubber. It's just a very simple thing, pencil and rubber, and then so that you can change I think there is, unfortunately, technology doesn't really, pick up that much to replace pencil and rubber. And when you are in the rehearsal space, you need to be clear. So I would say there are 2 things I want to cover here, which is the language you use, clear language. What do you mean by clear language? Jargons, if you can avoid jargon, avoid them. But there are benefits in using jargons as well, because if there's a word that needs to be used in theatre, like stage left, stage right, things like that, then it is a way to help empower people, a way to help like give them the hard skills of being a performer, so that it's just to pass on your knowledge as well. The other thing is, well, of course, that I think is easiest to forget is define your space, define the room that you are in with your performers. It helps people access what you want to do and follow all the sessions. Like, this is where I would like everybody to put their bags down, and then if you have bottles of water, you can put it so this is where you could be accessing, and then that will be our working stage. So we'll be in this, we have the chairs in a circle. This is where we will sit down to discuss with a flip chart on the side, and then so this is another empty space. Things like define the space as well. It's almost like helping them define their minds. The other thing is, another headline is give direction and take the lead. I know that because usually a lot of people, we're nice people. We want to be very listening, give people options, and be democratic. These are all good things, but then at the same time, because your role is the director in the room, and you need to assume that role. And then that is a skill when you that is the skill that you need to really practice more to balance. How do you balance giving people option, and also how to be directive, because people are, and also presumably you are the person to spend your time working on the hard skills that's been listed up as well. And then same as the performer spend their time working on performance skills, but then you're the person to spend time on being the director. So you take the rein and be, it doesn't mean that you are superior than others. It means that you have a clear role of giving directions and shaping how your rehearsal, how your show wants to look like. And then shying away from that, on the flip side of the coin, it might be, it would mean abdicating responsibility. And so I think it is also important to have that balance to really take on the role. Okay, so I think you should have enough to go work on, like all the dumbbells that you go and lift in this lockdown. Before we go, 2 more dumbbells that I want to throw at you. So there are 2 books that are, I think they are really useful. The first one is from Katie Mitchell. It's called The Director's Craft. Handbook for the theatre. Is there, like, I make notes on that. I still refers to it from time to time. It's like something like you drive a car every day, but then you haven't oiled it for a while. You need to go back to the manual. How do I open that cap? Which cap? Something like that. So it tells you the practical, how to run a technical rehearsal, what to do on the press night, things like that. So this is the book that you can go and read. This is another one. I see Deborah smiling. It is so there are hundreds of theatre games and exercises you can go and so it's called Games for Actors and Non-Actors by Augusto Boal. And then I think one thing is I have to mention, it's 2x3 by Bradford. This one here. This game is originated in Mind the Gap. Adrian Jackson have come to Mind the Gap like years ago, and then and our former artistic director Tim Wheeler has shared this game with him, and it makes it into this book. And then if you read it, and it's like, it's like a, what do you call it, a catalogue of theatre games and exercises for professional actors and community performers, non-actors as well. So this is you can live your life by that. So I think that gets to the end of my session so far. Thank you everybody for joining in and being around and choosing to spend this glorious Tuesday afternoon.
Can you list the book name and the author?
So this is called, so it is Games for Actors and Non-Actors, and Augusto Boal is the writer. Is it like mirror image to you? Not mirror. All right, okay, so you can see it. So it is that. And then that's the other book, The Director's Craft by Katie Mitchell.
Brilliant. Did it.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.